Welcome to Spin Sisters. I'm Tara Erickson.
And I'm Mary LaHammer, and today we are talking about the Minnesota Sustainable Foraging Task Force, a bipartisan effort. We're all kind of desperate for something bipartisan. But Tara, I want to start with you because this has kind of been your baby, and you brought us some examples because we're talking about food after all. What do you have?
I brought just a couple of things. I am not like a lot of other foragers. I'm very avid about it, but I know about 10 different things, maybe 10 plants and 10 mushrooms. I've got my morels that'll be coming up very
Oh, I
soon,
love that.
left over from last
Yeah.
year. And a couple of other things like my ramp salt. I told you that I have ramps coming up right now. So I'm excited about that. And so I make a lot of ramp butter.
Which is amazing. I will interject. I brought it to my Friendsgiving with a bunch of foodies and it went super fast. It was like the hit of Friendsgiving with like chefs and food TV producers. It was pretty
Awesome.
incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the reason why we're kind of talking about some of these things is, as I think folks know, some of our viewers know, that I spent 23 years lobbying at the Capitol. And a number of years ago, probably about 16 years ago, I started getting involved in foraging. And I joined the Minnesota Mycological Society because I wanted to spend time around people who were smarter than me. So I joined this and tried to go out on some forays with them to learn more about mushrooms and plants. And a couple of years ago, I got an email and it said that we're kind of in trouble here. The DNR is looking at potentially severely limiting foraging on state lands. And that really scared me because if you're not a land baron, you don't own a ton, where are you really going to do that?
Mhm.
So I contacted the Minnesota Myco Association and just told them I lobbied for 23 years. Can I be helpful? What's going on? And then I just decided that I wanted to try and do a task force. So I contacted those folks and I got a bill drafted, which I was very lucky to get that done. And then I had Senator Pa who wanted to help out with that. So let's get talking to our senator who not only authored our legislation in 2025, but also chaired the task force.
Yeah, Senator Susan Pa, Democrat from Brooklyn Park. We should say when she was elected in 2022, she was only the second Hmong woman to serve in the Senate. We're excited to have her. So,
Yeah.
Senator, this was a bipartisan effort. I think a bipartisan bill is coming out of it. But let's kind of go back because one of the goals of the task force was consensus. Not a lot of consensus in politics right now. Did you do it?
We did. And, we were really excited about this bill. We knew that we were going to get bipartisan support because, the reality is everybody cares about their ability to get outdoors and forage. And so we were really glad to have that bipartisan support. But honestly, also because Tara was such a critical piece of that work in talking to people on both sides of the aisles and say, this is how it impacts your communities and your districts. So that was really great.
Yeah, Tara, I was looking up what we're talking about because I think, you showed a morel mushroom and ramp. I think people know that. But it looks like the legislation is going to cover seeds, berries, nuts, flowers, leaves, roots, shoots, and fungi and some herbaceous plants. How did I do?
That's right. That sounds right, Tara?
Yeah, it's just a lot of different things. They want to make sure that I think that it was extremely comprehensive.
So, Senator, obviously this we heard kind of came out of the DNR and some possible limits. So how has it been working with them? Do you have DNR buy-in? Because, of course, a bill needs a signature to become a law, and the governor is responsible for the DNR. So how is that going?
Yeah, we've had a really good faith, I think respectful conversations and work together to try and find a good pathway forward this year, especially for the task force recommendations. So we did introduce the bill. We will be having a hearing on it. Excited about that. And we're hoping that we can pass something this year. And maybe that may not be the entirety of the bill, but we're hoping that we can pass something off of the bill that can be a bipartisan support that we can get through. So I'm really excited about that. The DNR has been working with us in good faith, but I think that we do have different perspectives. The DNR has different perspectives about what their version of access and foraging is, and I think the the community, people who actually go out there and forage, they have a different idea of what access in foraging looks like in actual practice.
Yeah, we should say
Oh,
we have a forager to speak to a little bit later just to
Mhm.
tease the audience out there. She's pretty incredible and we get to see some more food.
and I
Tara?
do say, like, it is interesting when I looked at the bill. So when I looked through the actual report from the task force, I know that certain things had to be about 80% or more, right?
Mhm.
That kind of like everybody be comfortable with it. And so there were a number of those recommendations. But when I looked at the legislation, there are also some things in the legislation that are just maybe under that.
Yep.
And so I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. Are you still kind of trying to put a few things in, even though it maybe didn't hit that 80% threshold?
Yeah. As a task force early on in our work, we decided that we wanted to try and get as much buy-in as we can for anything that would be a super majority support on. So we did put together that 80% threshold. That's really high, I have to say, especially when you've got a big group of people from all different perspectives and backgrounds at the table. So we're not talking about like-minded people who are sitting together where you're going to get most consensus. You're talking about people who are already on opposite sides on the topic and issue and coming together to try and get to that 80%. So we actually did really well. 5 of our 7 recommendations got the majority of the 80%, and there was 2 that didn't make it, but got majority, and so all of them are included in the bill, and I think that in general, people still support it, and what I've heard from the community and from also my legislators is that they support all 7 recommendations.
Yeah, I think now we have your vice chair, Republican
Mhm.
Representative Roger Scraba there. Representative, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Why don't you give us your perspective? Yeah, on this bipartisan work that came out of the foraging task force. What do you think was most important of the results?
I think throughout the whole process, I think what I learned was foragers are a very passionate group, and the people in my district, the North Shore folks mainly, they're avid foragers up there, and they're like, "You're not going to make us buy a license. You're not going to make us." I mean, they don't want any more regulation. You know, that's the key here is they don't want to be regulated anymore. And if there are issues, like if there are certain foragers that are quote abusing what's happening, they take care of it internally. So I think this brings everything to the forefront. This task force brings it all to the forefront, gives us an opportunity to maybe have a place to take care of those disputes, somehow to manage them. So if there is issues between the DNR, between counties, any agency that wants to quote regulate this, that it's not a free for all, that there could be something that we said, hey, this is the standard. This is what you all need to do. And then from there, do your thing. But I think we just want to be reasonable. I think that's a fair assessment of what we're trying to do.
And I think that's what when I came up with, the idea and I just said, I think we need a task force because it was really interesting to me that every time we had tried to meet with the DNR and, they were like, we're going to let you have a gallon bag. And I just said, like, a third of the mushrooms we forage for literally don't fit into a gallon bag. And they went, really? Really? And I
Uh,
said, yes. So could we all be at the table and do this together? Like, we don't want bad actors out there,
Right.
obviously, you
Mhm.
know, all the ramps. Like, we don't want that either. But, what they were initially proposing was just not going to be workable for the foraging community. And if you're not, again, if you're not a land baron, where are you going to go and do this?
Right. Right.
That's
So
right.
so I just want to thank you both for doing this work. I remember when I called Representative Scraba because we're both from the range, and he was like, "My God, what are they going to tell people? Old women in my district they can't go and pick blueberries? That's not going to work." So
You'd lose votes, right? I mean, this is like you said, Representative, people are passionate. You heard from a
Oh,
ton of different backgrounds and interest groups. I mean, did you learn a lot?
myself, I learned tons. I guide canoe trips, so I'm in the woods a lot, and my whole life I never ate mushrooms. I started at a young age to hate mushrooms, just didn't like them. And then I used to pick
yeah.
bags of morels for my clients. Here you go, and I'd cook them. Here you go. I don't want yuck, ick mushrooms. And then I started eating them as I got older, going, what was I thinking? You know, these are really good. And I can see the passion. And once you find your little spots, you're like, where'd you get them? Well, I don't know. So over there, don't tell anyone anything. And
Never tell.
no, but what I learned is the people that care passionately about this, they also care about bringing invasive species in your boots to this. They also care about, overpicking it. That there's an awareness out there that, again, we'll see where this goes, what makes it through, how it gets through. And if it doesn't, I mean, I'm prepared if it doesn't, like if this session is going to be really weird. So, I mean, if nothing happens, it's okay because we can bring this up again after everyone's had time to settle and think about it and what we want. And I can tell you the people that were at the table want something. So if we don't get it across the finish line now, it'll get across. It'll just be at a different time. And, right now everything is going, it seems like it's all going 100 miles an hour, but it's the typical government. I was the military. Hurry up, wait. Hurry up, wait. So that's where we are right now.
Let's try and see if we can pass it this year, Roger. I'll just tell you, I've got a lot of people who's been calling me and saying, "So, should we be excited about spring and summer coming?" And I'm like, yes, we should be excited, but we don't know where we are with the foraging bill because they're really excited about going outdoors and
Yeah.
foraging, and they're paying attention to our bill to see if this is the year they're going to actually be able to go out and forage some of the plants that they want, or if they're not going to be able to and they're going to have to wait. So we'll see what we can pass this year. And then to
I-
Roger's point, let's see what we can do this year. And if whatever we aren't able to do this year, we're going to come back next year with it.
Yeah,
Right.
Representative, you have to have a bipartisan bill in your tide chamber. Do you have a DFL author in the House as well?
I'm optimistic. If it goes through the Senate, that should be enough to get it to a conference committee, so hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see where we are, politically. I'm glad we're doing it. I think it's, again, the DNR is not happy with the couple that are on there. That's something, again, we'll deal with. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's the barter thing. And I think what happened for me, I got to see and realize how, and that's not the word I'm looking for, not overreaching, but how much the DNR is asked to do. And it's so much.
Sure.
And it's like, how do you guys function? How can you be this big and include everything and try to be fair, And so I think if
Yeah,
anything,
and
that's
be
what
an expert on everything. Right.
they have all the other groups going, no, 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 no. And then our group going, yes, yes, yes. And they're like, well, we're trying to find the middle. And I'm like, I don't know that there's a middle here. Oh, it's kind of like either going to let them do this or you're not. And
Yeah.
again, it seemed like their
I think
fears were, are we going to ruin it? Are we going to ruin it? And I'm like, no, just these people that are passionate about this are your biggest advocates. They're the ones you want out there. They're the ones you want people showing people how to do it right and saying, this is the rules now. This is the way we do it. So go ahead.
They got to do
Yeah.
more engagement. The DNR has got to be more engaged with the communities that actually go out and forage like they are with the communities that go and hunt. I mean, there's a lot more engagement that happens with other recreational activities that they support, but they just have not invested in that same type of engagement with the communities that go out and forage and enjoy our outdoor spaces. They'll find very quickly that people who forage are the people who care the most about our state lands. They're the ones who take
Yes.
care of our state lands. They're the ones who make sure that that the things that they forage regenerate and come back the next year. And I think it's about that engagement because, like Tara had mentioned before, there's such a disconnect. Some of the people who are making decisions don't ever forage. They don't know what a gallon size really means when they're putting those limits in. And unless you're talking to people who actually forage those things, you don't know if it's appropriate or not to put those limits in.
Yeah. And a data point, Tara, that I think you taught me, and through the research on the story that I did on Almanac, that we had you on statewide TV talking about this, that 1 in 3 Minnesotans forage. That is a lot of people. This has gone incredibly mainstream. Yes, there are the super passionate advocates, but a lot of people do it. They're not just Democrats. They're not just Republicans. They're
No.
not just urban, rural, suburban. Did the two of you discover this is everywhere?
Yeah, that's right. And the thing about foraging is that there's only some people only forage certain things and that are only seasonal for a week or two out of the whole entire year, but they look forward to it the entire year. They look forward to going out there. And so when you think about so many people out foraging, they're worried that the resources are all going to be depleted. That somehow, if all these thousands of people go and forage, they're going to take all the resources. That's so untrue. There's only a small season in which we can go and forage the things that we love. And it's not going to all of a sudden disappear because people are foraging.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you both
representative. Yeah.
for doing the work. When I asked, I called Roger and said, "Hi, will you please be a vice chair on this?" And he was like,
And and that is something you guys have alluded to, and I haven't spoke to it, but the bipartisan. My senator is Senator Hochschild, DFL, and him and I do a lot together, and we bonding just bills, and there's some things we'll never see eye to eye, but but we also represent the same people, and it's that spirit that I got into this with the same thing. This is not a D or an R issue. This is a Minnesotan issue. And how can we put the swords down, put everything down? Let's just go and get this done and find it. And Senator Fa is it's good. It's all good because I like working with people. And sometimes I don't care what your party is. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Let's solve the problem. Let's solve the problem and then worry about the politics after. So I'm
well,
headstrong.
thank you. It was a little tricky for you guys to do this tonight. So we appreciate it. And thanks for joining us.
Yes,
And
thank you for
Thank you for
having us.
bipartisan work.
Thank
It's
you.
fun to hear about. I always say bipartisanship gets extra credit with this political reporter. So there you
Awesome.
go.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And we have a friend of mine with us, Jamie Rockney, Chick of the Woods. Honestly, just a really cool person. It's been really great getting to know her. She has a business and she teaches people about foraging. And so she's with us today, and I'm really excited for you guys to get to know her. Jamie, introduce yourself.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on. This is so sweet. Yeah. So, uh, like you mentioned, I have a foraging business. So that's kind of my main gig is taking people out and teaching them how to find and identify wild food. I personally focus more on mushrooms, but I definitely get into edible plants and berries as well. But my passion is with mushrooms.
With
And
mushrooms, yeah.
I really love doing this just because I never had anybody teaching me growing up. So I actually learned about this in my late 20s.
I was just going to ask you, like, where did this kind of happen? Because, like, I've always been a big outdoor girl, but I didn't start foraging until about maybe a little over 15 years ago at all, right? And I'm going to be
Yeah.
50 next year. So, I mean, it wasn't most of my life. So, how did this kind of start for you?
Well, yeah, same. So it was about 20 years ago when I had a friend of mine that took me out mushroom hunting. And before that, I too was also like super outdoorsy. I went to school for natural resources. I loved being outside and all things nature. But once this friend of mine taught me about foraging, thing just clicked and I was hooked. And it's something, just this passion like I've never had before. And I just can't help but think that foraging is just, it's so natural to humans. Like, this is literally what humans are meant to do. We're hunters and gatherers. We're out looking for food. And back in the day, maybe it meant, if you found some food, you get to live another day, and now, of course, it's a little bit different, but that rush of finding food is just so inescapable.
I honestly, I agree with you. I remember the day where I found the most morels, right, that I had ever found, right? And I just had something that told me to stop, and I had to pick up the boys from school, my boys, in like, I don't know, 45 minutes. But something was like, I think you should stop and go and check those woods. And I did. And I always, in the spring, I always have my, all of my stuff in the car. And I got down in there and I walked 4 feet into the woods, and I picked up over 170 morels.
Oh
That's
my
never
gosh.
happened to me before.
Wow. I want to see some food because Jamie, some things are in bloom. There are green pickable things. What do you have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the very, very beginning of the I guess edible season, if you will. So mushrooms aren't really out yet. You can find a few little things, but nothing that you would go out foraging for mushrooms. But so this is kind of the season for green plants. And
Mhm.
I think probably the most common green plant that people know about is wild onions or wild leeks, ramps. And so I actually grow some. I plant them out in my front yard. So right before this podcast, I just grabbed one. So this is a fantastic edible plant that is
The whole
really
part.
easy to identify. So you can see this one has 3 leaves. So they can have 2 to 3 leaves and they have an onion bulb. And one of the best ways to identify it is just to smell it. If you just take a
Yes,
Mhm.
leaf and
that's
crush
what I
it,
was going to say. Because
you
they
know.
can look like other things, but the
Yeah.
smell is the really big
Yeah,
identifier.
what is I forgot what the name of their lookalike is.
Lily of the valley.
Lily of the Valley. There
So,
we go.
yeah,
Yep.
that actually grows in my front yard right next to these too.
Does it?
Yes, mine
So
up at my lake place. Yeah, out in the
It's
woods. They
Lily
grow
of the
side by
Valley.
side. So I always use smell to differentiate
yeah.
because I'm kind of
So,
a rookie.
Mary,
Yeah.
another good way to know this is that honestly, ramps are up for about a month and then they wilt and they die and you don't see them anymore.
Wow.
But Lily of the Valley will be up through fall. So, like,
Right. Yeah. Like a
if
bulb.
you're,
Yeah.
yeah, like if you're getting into June, those aren't ramps because
Okay.
they're gone already.
And Jamie, you have
That's
something
weird.
else to show us? There's something else
Oh, yeah,
green?
one
Yeah.
of the other really popular things to forage for right now is stinging nettle, which it
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but this is one of my favorite edible plants to forage for. So, of course,
Weird.
like it
Weird.
doesn't sound good, but they're one of the most nutritious plants in the
They are.
world.
Yep.
And I love this one because, most people consider it a weed, so
Mhm.
people don't mind if you pick it. If someone has it in their yard, you can easily just ask if you can pick their nettle and they're like, whatever, sure. But
Do
yeah,
So what
you
do you use
saute
it
it?
for? Yeah. What do you use it for when you say it's one of your favorite
I
things?
saute
Yeah.
mine with butter and ramps, and when we do it, like, if I just saute greens together,
Yeah.
I'll do nettle, dandelion leaves, and then ramp leaves all together and
awesome.
saute it in a little butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you do it?
Well, yeah, you can use it pretty much however you would use spinach or kale. My
Yep.
hands down favorite is to make stinging nettle soup. One of my favorite soups I've ever had in
Oh,
my life. So that's what I live for in the spring is a stinging nettle soup. The other
okay.
thing that like of course everyone's worried about getting stung by it, but
Mhm.
when it's young like this, it doesn't sting as bad, like not much. So you don't have to worry about it. But for eating it, if you cook it, that takes away the
It
sting.
does take the
That's
sting away.
Okay. So you
Yep.
don't have to chop
how
that
you
part
eat it.
off.
Nope.
No,
Nope.
but actually another one way you can eat it raw is by putting it in your smoothie. So I love green smoothies. So I just replace this with spinach or kale and throw it in. And then if you blend it enough, then it won't have that stinging sensation.
Other thing so my boys, their favorite vegetable, both of them, are fiddleheads.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
love them. They have been hunting with me for years to go and find fiddleheads. And one year I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could make a soup out of this. And so I did. I made a pot of soup and everybody loved it. It
Oh,
wasn't, I mean, like, I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite. Like, I just like sauteing them again in ramp butter and other things. But yeah, I mean, you can just kind of be a little creative. Do
Yeah.
people
When are
think,
they up? If I want to interject you two, when
well,
do we look for them? When are they best? Remind people what they
fiddleheads.
look like too, because they're super distinctive.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I was just out this morning, which is when I picked this nettle, and I checked my patches, but they're not out yet. I would think about 2 weeks,
couple,
end of April, they should be out, and they'll be out for a few weeks or so. But yeah, the fiddlehead is just a type of an ostrich fern, or it's a
yep,
stage of a fern.
yep.
And the one that we talk about eating is the ostrich fern. So when I say fiddlehead, it could be any fern that's just tightly coiled
Still
up. It
tightly
hasn't
coiled.
branched out yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ostrich fern is really common in the Midwest here. It has like a celery-shaped stem. When you look at it when it's young, it has like an onion peel covering on it, kind of that
Like
brown
a gold
papery.
paper.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So those are kind of the two main things that you look for. And speaking of like sustainability, like we're talking about with this task force, like I think ostrich ferns and nettle are like such great plants that are you can pick them sustainably. Like
Uh-huh.
for one, these fiddlehead ferns, the ostrich ferns are almost impossible to kill anyway.
And it's
Like,
good for them to get thinned out. So,
yeah.
like, if there's one
Hmm.
where there's, like 10 fronds on it, I'll take 4. And so that's really good to thin it out every once in a while. So,
Yeah, and
Jamie,
you can grow them in your backyard and they'll take over. So, like, I'll even mow them over and they come back.
Wow. Wow. Jamie, we met you at the Capitol when I was working on a story when it was, I believe, your first trip to the state capitol. And you got to listen to lawmakers earlier and hear about the bipartisan work and how they're trying to get this bill through. What did you learn about the process in this?
Oh my gosh. I learned that I don't want to get into politics.
But you had a role in affecting
Yeah.
politics. It
No, I
worked.
did.
You
I
showed
did.
up.
I don't want to get into politics, but I did think it was good to get involved. So I thought
yeah,
it wasn't as hard as I thought. It really helped having Tara there, somebody that I could ask questions to about what I should actually do. But yeah,
uh-huh.
just this task force in general has just had so much support, and I think that they're seeing that how important it is to us. And so I guess I've learned that if you really are passionate about something, it does make a difference to
It
get
does.
involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. You wore one of your little cute mushroom dresses and came up to the Capitol. And I know you sent emails, to elected officials. We had a really good group of people who were really advocating. So, what I was told by both the House and the Senate that last year at the end of 2025 was nobody is bugging lawmakers more on the environment bill, omnibus bill, than foragers. And I was like, all right, I'll take that as a win. Like I'm feeling
And
Awesome.
good about
Tara,
that.
you had some celebrity chefs there testifying. Sean
I did.
Sherman, the
Yeah.
sous chef, you had the forager chef. I mean, you brought citizen lobbyists are awesome, but you
Yep.
also brought a little star power. Although I will say over the years, I've had many lawmakers tell me that some of the grassroots citizen testimony has
Yep.
changed their mind the most
For
and been
sure.
the most powerful testimony is
Yep.
real people.
Yep. No, there's no doubt. And I think it was very important to have Sean Sherman there, especially talking from the native point of view, right? On this. I mean, it
Mhm.
is food and it is medicine and it has been for their culture for thousands of years. And so I just thought it was really important for him to be there. And it did bring a little bit of star power. And then of course, Chef Alan Bergo, I didn't even know he was in Minnesota. And my first meeting that I did um, with the Minnesota Mycological Society. It was online. And just beforehand, I said, hey, does anybody know this chef named Alan Bergo? I was just on a mushroom Facebook groups and somebody had posted a picture of his book and this person lived in Poland and I was like, "Oh, I have to look up this guy." And sure enough, he was from St. Paul, Minnesota. So
Mhm.
I definitely reached out right away and was like, "We're going to need some star power." And so everything fell together really quick and obviously Jamie had the best from her Chick of the Woods Instagram. She had some of the best video that you were able to do when you did a story
Yeah.
on
Jamie,
this
tell us
bill.
about that because I think the moment, the best moment in the whole story I thought was you coming out with this big,
Gallon
huge,
bag.
beautiful chick of the woods. And then what happened?
Chicken of the
Tell us.
woods in a gallon bag.
Yeah, so obviously my name Chick of the Woods is a play off of the chicken of the woods mushroom, but that is a gigantic mushroom. I mean, I've
Yeah.
picked, I think I weighed 44 pounds of this mushroom off of one tree one time.
Yeah.
So I had picked this beautiful chicken of the woods and I was just trying to, I had a gallon bag and I was trying to shove this chicken of the woods in the gallon bag. And I'm like, "Whoa, guess I can't take it.
I guess it
Right, like,
doesn't
literally,
fit.
you
Doesn't
explained
fit.
the whole story right there. As soon as I saw
Yep.
that clip of yours on Instagram, I'm like, "Oh, that's the story,
That's the
is that it
story.
doesn't
Yep.
fit in the gallon baggie," and you
Yeah.
demonstrated that. What kind of reaction did you get to that?
Oh, I had a lot of people cheering me on with that one. That one was pretty popular. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just like they just don't know these things. And that's what we're here is to teach them, okay, this just doesn't make sense. Like,
Yep.
we're willing to play along, but we got to meet and discuss like what's actually realistic. And we're not going to just take a half of a mushroom. There's no point in that. But
No. And so what I was kind of wondering is how do you think people could get more involved in the foraging community? Like obviously I know that I found the Minnesota Mycological Society. But Jamie, like you put on an event, right? Or like is it around the holidays that you do like a really cool foraging event? What else? Like what else is there if people want to understand the rules around foraging or take classes?
yeah, well, there's a lot of ways to get involved. I think that's one of the best things about Facebook is having Facebook foraging pages. If you can
Sure.
join the foraging pages, like you do learn a lot from that because people are posting what they find. As you mentioned, I do foraging classes. It's always easiest to learn about foraging when you learn from
Doing it.
somebody that knows, whether it's a friend, whether it's a class. You mentioned the Mycological Society. They take people out foraging. That's just for mushrooms, but like I'll do classes on plants and things too. So, uh,
How often do you do classes?
depending on the season, maybe two classes a week, up to
Okay.
every other week if it's a little bit slower. Mhm.
Okay. All
And
right.
Jamie, this is your job, right? We talked about this in your interview. This
Yeah.
became kind of a passion that turned into a profession,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quit my job 4 years ago now, I can't believe it, and I had no idea if I could make this work or not, but, it's been going way better than I ever expected a mushroom hunting business would go, and,
Love it.
when I do this, it's just I'm just you know, I feel like people maybe exaggerate a little bit, but like I am truly doing what I love. Like I just want to bring
Yeah.
people out in the woods and share the excitement. And if you like Tara, I know you've been out. I don't know, Mary, if you've been out foraging much with other people or, on your own, but like that thrill that people have when they find something and learn a new plant or a new mushroom or, even the stinging
Oh,
nettle or
yeah. No, I'm
right.
a berries girl. My black cap's
Yeah.
obsessed
Yeah.
in the woods
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the lake. Yeah. Like, yeah, the heart races. Like, there is,
Yes.
yeah, there's a physiological reaction to it. And
Yep.
I think it's just, yeah, finding something wild, finding something free, finding
Yeah.
something edible. But the one thing I want to bring up too, Jamie, is maybe people do need a little help and maybe we
Yeah.
shouldn't all just head into the woods and start eating things because it can go bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, there
Yes.
are actually plants and mushrooms that can kill you. And, that's always
Mhm.
one of the best ways to start is kind of by learning which ones to avoid. So when you start learning, just start with the really easy ones. We kind of call them like the banana mushrooms, like what a banana is. There's nothing else that looks like a banana. Well, there's some mushrooms like the big puffball. If you've got a big white ball in the woods, it's either a puffball mushroom or a volleyball. Like that's
Yeah.
the only thing
That's
you're
about
gonna
it.
confuse it
And
with.
is it edible or not?
It
It
is
is.
edible,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
Yep.
I would not know
Doesn't
that.
taste like a lot, but you can make it taste kind of like anything you want it to.
yeah,
So I made it into pizza crusts one year.
yes,
And yes, so I made it into pizza crust, then put it under the broiler and then made some pizzas.
yeah.
The boys didn't love it, but I actually thought it was pretty good.
I
So
think yeah, I kinda call it tofu of the woods, it doesn't have a
it is.
lot of flavor, it's
Doesn't
it's
have a
more
lot
of
of
a
flavor.
means of getting other tastier food into you, and I do love the fact
Yep.
that you can use it as a gluten-free alternative for the pizza crust. I've even done, like, a gluten-free, bread type thing, so you can make a
Yeah.
sandwich out of it, but yeah, I
Yep.
don't love it. There's so many other mushrooms. That's possibly my least favorite mushroom, flavor-wise, but there's just
Yeah.
so many things you can do, and a lot of people like to dehydrate it and powder it and use it in soups and stocks and things like that to just add more volume and a little bit more of that mushroom.
Yeah, I told Mary that I make mushroom dust. So that's what
Yeah.
I do with like a
Did
lot
you
of the
bring
mushrooms.
some? Okay, there we go. Somebody
Yeah,
has.
I know
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
really
That's
see
okay.
that very
Yeah.
well, but
Yeah.
yeah, you can just dehydrate mushrooms and keep them in a jar like this with a desiccant pack, and they'll pretty much keep forever.
Yeah. So I dry them and then I do that. And then I'll season depending on which ones I put in there and blend it all up in my Cuisinart after they're dried. And then I'll use it for gravies or I'll use it when like in a stew. So yeah, just as seasoning on meat, everything. Like
Wow.
it's super fun that way.
So, Jamie, where can people find you? That's what I want to know because I think a lot of people want guidance at the beginning. Maybe we're going to
Oh,
have some hardcore foragers, but how do people find you and how do they get some
yeah.
guidance to get
Yeah,
started?
it's great if you're one of those people that are like, "I could never pick mushrooms, I'd pick the wrong one and die," like, that's, like, exactly what my classes are for. I do have some that are a little bit more advanced, but pretty much, yeah, people wanting to learn, just you can just Google, Chick of the Woods, I might pop up, or chickofthewoods.com is my website, and then Facebook, of course, is also Chick of the Woods, and Instagram
Instagram.
too.
Yeah.
Instagram has the periods in between the words, but, I have classes listed on my website and on my Facebook page, and, I mean, they truly are very fun. You meet the nicest people. I truly feel foragers are some of the nicest people in the world that just love walking around in the woods and looking for food. It is a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And turns
Um,
out you're good citizen lobbyists too.
yes.
Thank you, Tara, and all your good
And
work.
I think
Yeah.
it's important to say that we need to do it safely as somebody who has chronic Lyme. So I'm getting ready to spray all of my clothes that I then keep in my car. And I spray them. What's it called? Is it called permethrin?
Permethrin, yep.
Yeah, permethrin. So I spray all of that, and I have to do it outside because that can kill cats actually. So I spray it, and then I just leave those clothes in a bin in the back of my car, and then I just have everything ready to go. And I have never seen a tick on me since I started spraying my clothes
Yeah.
Wow.
and the boys'
It's so
clothes.
Great
effective.
tip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
do
learned a
think
lot. Yeah,
yeah,
from
yeah,
both of you.
yeah.
thank you.
I'm
Awesome.
excited.
Thank
I'm
you. Yeah.
excited to, start foraging here. I did want to show one book. I just picked it up. I know a lot of people have read this one, but it's called The Entangled Life. Um, and this one is just about literally how mushrooms says how fungi makes our worlds, changes our minds, and shapes our futures. I mean, there's so much cool stuff happening with mushrooms. They are cleaning up environmental disasters. There is a lot obviously happening with psychedelics, psilocybin, and as medicine and sacred medicine that's been around for a long time. So if people are interested, I think that book right here by Merlin Sheldrake is probably a really good one. I just started it, so I'm excited. I'm just a few pages in, so I will
Excellent.
report back.
Okay.
Thanks, Jamie, for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It's great to see you 2
Thank
again.
you. Yeah.
Yes, you too.
Bye.
Yeah, hope to catch up soon.
I would love that.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.